Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche. And this week, I want to pull together some of my favorite topics, choosing and planting native plants in our landscape and how to do that responsibly, and conserving rare species. So I just want to put a shout out to Ashley Cole-Wick with Michigan Natural Features Inventory. She did a great talk about Karner blue butterfly conservation at the recent Stewardship Network conference, and brought up a topic that I did not know was an emerging threat, and that's a non-native lupin species that's being planted and escaping into Karner blue butterfly habitat, and they can't use that species. So for the description in this post, I will include a link to the YouTube video that mnfi and dnr did. It focuses on Karner blue butterfly and Allegan State Game Area. It has some beautiful imagery of Karner blue butterflies and their habitat. I think this message is especially important for folks living on the west side of the state, where we have a lot of sandy soils and a lot of wild lupin and Karner blue butterfly and other lupin-dependent butterfly habitat. So why does it matter which species of lupin you plant in your landscapes? Well, there are several ways that this bigleaf lupin, Lupinus polyphyllus, is threatening both Karner blue butterfly and its native lupin host plant, wild lupin or sundial lupin, Lupinus perennis. So the first is the incompatibility as a larval food source for Karner blue butterfly, which I want to remind everyone is federally listed as endangered and state listed as threatened in Michigan. So Karner blue, or KBB for short, relies exclusively on our native Lupinus perennis for its larval development. It's what they lay their eggs on, and then the caterpillars feed on as they grow. So Karners cannot use the Lupinus polyphyllus, the bigleaf lupin, as a food source. Because this non-native species has a different chemical and nutritional makeup from our native lupin species that Karner has co-evolved with over thousands of years. And the chemical signatures are similar enough between the two lupin species that female Karner blue butterflies will lay their eggs on the bigleaf lupin, but upon hatching, the caterpillars can't eat, can't process the chemicals, or they may be toxic, and they end up dying. They can't eat that bigleaf lupin foliage. So in effect, by having that in the landscape, we're creating an ecological sink that is detrimental to this rare species. I'll include some resources in the details of this post about Karner blue. I did do a species post about it way back Monday with Martha number 9. And I also talk about insect host plants in Monday with Martha number 67. This larval host plant incompatibility is also true of other lupin-dependent butterflies, including frosted elfin and Perseus duskywing, some other rare butterfly species in Michigan. The second threat is that of hybridization. The Lupinus polyphyllus can hybridize with Lupinus perennis, and the hybrid isn't suitable for Karner blues or those other rare butterfly species to be able to grow and develop. So having that hybridization happening in the environment degrades the habitat by degrading the gene pool of the native wild lupin. And the third threat is the invasive potential of the bigleaf lupin. If site conditions are appropriate it can become invasive and sort of outcompete the native lupin and other native species by taking up resources and the physical space that would otherwise be occupied by Lupinus, perennis, and other native species that are important nectar resources for Karner blue butterfly and many other insects in the habitat. So now that we've established why it's important to plant the correct species of lupin, let's take a closer look at how you can tell the big leaf lupin from our native sundial or wild lupin. I found a really great YouTube post about the difference between the two lupin species. This was from the Wild Seed Project in Maine. And I'll include a link to that video as well, but you can see here how short our native plant is overall. It only gets about 1 foot to 2.5 feet tall. Its flowers are purple to blue, very rarely white or pink. And the flower raceme or spike tends to be shorter and more sparsely flowered than that of the big leaf lupin. There are also fewer leaflets, so both species are palmately compound, kind of like the fingers radiating out from the palm of your hand. And our native Lupinus perennis has, I've seen sources say 5 to 11. Michigan Flora Online says 8 to 11, but basically 11 or fewer leaflets per compound leaf. And those leaflets are usually less than 2 inches long. And from a habitat perspective, it occupies dry, sandy soil sites that are pretty sunny. So our dry sand prairie locations through to our oak savannas or oak woodland if they've started to grow in. Big leaf, also known as western, giant, garden, or Washington lupin, Lupinus polyphyllus, is a much larger plant, as you can see here with the same lady for scale. It can grow 2 to 4 feet tall. It has larger flowers. The raceme can get 6 to 18 inches long, and they're denser, so more densely flowered. They can be purple or pink or white. This species is native to the western United States and Canada, just not to the Midwest and the eastern United States. It's grown commercially. You'll find it in lots of gardens that it can then escape from, and it's used to create hybrids in the plant trade. So besides the different flower characteristics from our native sundial lupin, this big leaf lupin also has more leaflets. So 11 to 17, I saw sources that said, 12 all the way up to 18, basically more than 11 leaflets than our native species has. So anything 12 or more is likely to be this big leaf lupin, and those individual leaflets are longer. They are 2 to 4 inches long, up to maybe even 8 inches long, depending on the site where the plant is growing. So you definitely want to check several of the larger basal leaves of a plant and check more than one as you're counting leaflets. But that should be a really reliable way to help tell the two species apart. And generally, the big leaf lupin likes richer, wet to moist soil sites, or if you're in like a roadside habitat or a place that's really disturbed or looks like a purposely seeded wildflower meadow, you can use habitat or landscape context to help you make that decision as well. So I hope those key characters help you tell the difference between our native sundial lupin and the non-native bigleaf lupin. And I'd like to end by talking a little bit about what you can do to help conserve Karner blue butterfly and other rare wildlife around you. So it's definitely important to know what species are native to your particular area, especially species that are critical to the survival of rare specialist species like lupin-dependent butterflies. Secondly, you can conserve the native species in their natural habitats where you live. Nature knows best, and so helping to preserve those habitats through helping with invasive species management, implementing management, or allowing natural disturbances to happen to help sustain healthy native plant assemblages is really important. You can also plant locally native species in your own landscapes. Just make sure that you're keeping track of the scientific name and the seed sources of what you're planting. You can't depend on common names. You heard how many common names I rattled off for just these two lupin species. And it's really important that you pay attention to the plant material that you're introducing into your landscape. In Michigan in particular, you can also purchase wildlife habitat license plates or hunting licenses that go towards rare wildlife and other wildlife habitat conservation efforts. And I also wanted to mention, because February is National Wild Bird Feeding Month, that you can take a gander at a series that I did last February, Mondays with Martha, number 193 to 196. And as you're dreaming of what native plants you want to work with for the 2025 growing season, you can be thinking about native plants for feeding our wild birds in particular. Thanks for letting me share something new that I learned with you, and I hope you have a good week.